Cyber season is in full swing with our pals Isotope and Native Instruments.
Get huge discounts on everything from Guitar Rig 7,
Complete 14 bundles,
and one of our favorites here at the Cult and Culture Podcast,
Ozone 11 EQ. Go to isotope.com
and nativeinstruments.com
to feast on the audio goodness. Yum.
You can also get additional savings on other softwares by using the code
RUIN10.
DistroKid now also has a motherfucking app. The DistroKid app is available for iOS and Android. You can download it at distrokid.com/app/, or you can get it in the App Store.
Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 25 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
and I'm Luke Henshaw.
This episode features our friends from Plack, Blague. Man, I go back pretty far with Ross through his band Wasteoid from Nebraska. Would end up playing shows with the Locust and stuff over the years, and then his bandmate and partner Lauren, also an equally amazing artist, like drawing artist, goes under the moniker of Butch Dick Art. That guy rules too.
Yeah.
The two of them together are just insanely amazing. So there's a lot to this podcast. It was rad to have them on, and also really cool that it was after we just had Adult, and they had like this kind of like I don't know, pairing of the two acts touring all the time.
Yeah.
That's how I actually ended up meeting Adult. But yeah, I don't know. At one point I was in one of the Plack Blague videos. It's called Placktuality. It's filmed in the alley behind The Smell. So there's all this like stuff intertwined, but it was really rad to have them on the podcast, and I kind of thought we were going to talk about some of the stuff we did cover, the obvious stuff, but it got like really seriously kind of gnarly with like gay politics and activism and stuff, and even just like modern day gay community. I don't know, like what's going on, like modern politics, because Lauren's a bit older, and so we dove into sort of his roots and stuff, and talked about like some of the stuff that he was fighting against in the 80s and 90s, being a gay man in San Francisco. And so it's just a trip seeing them, in 2022 and watching the audience still react. I mean, there's not like the negative reaction that I think a band like Plack Blague would have received, in the 90s, but I definitely can see people tripping out, and I'm psyched on that. It's almost a form of activism, and man, I just think they're brilliant. I love those guys, and I'm glad they do what they do. They have a really cool aesthetic and vibe. So anyhow, thanks for listening. Thanks to Plack Blague for coming out here and being on our podcast.
Here we go.
So here we go. Can we get what's it called? A voice ID from both of you?
Which means what?
You just have to say your name.
Oh.
And that's it.
I'm Lauren.
This is Ross of Plack Blague.
That's good.
Obviously, we don't do this a lot. I never do this. But.
Okay, well, that was good. Now we're on the right track. So,
Get that out of here.
Right.
Thanks for being here.
Now we can be loud.
Thanks for being here and doing this, and it's awesome to see you guys again.
Yeah, it's awesome to see
you.
you.
It's so cool.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course.
It's cool to be back in San Diego, actually.
It's also nice that you're wearing an Adult shirt, for people that can't see, because we just had Adult on our podcast, and it was.
I heard.
We talked a bit about you too.
Oh,
The
no.
tour. No, it was all good.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the shit out of them now. I already loved them, but now I really love them. So
it's amazing traveling with them, and kind of everyone letting go of not their courtesies, but
like everyone was farting, right?
No,
actually
but they were
not.
talking about it. We were talking about it a lot. No, but it's just nice, especially after 2 years of really not seeing anybody, and really only talking to them a couple times over Zoom or whatever, just to be with them and be with people interacting with people like we interact with each other, but just kind of having more of a larger unit.
Yeah, family.
Yeah. And we'd argue, they'd argue, and but it's no big thing.
Yeah.
And then you go and you do your shows, and you're in this new country. Next day, you're in a different country,
Yeah.
Well, we've spent a lot of time with them too,
Right.
like personal time where you're in a van
Right.
with each other for 6 weeks and you get to kind of know each other pretty well.
right.
And
Sometimes too well, but those
Yeah.
are like the really beautiful moments, especially if you have a conflict and you can work through it. Then you know how to navigate with your friends. And
Right.
Right. I feel like it's like being on the road with a band like you're really good friends with, like adult. It's just easier because you can understand each other more and there's less arguing. There's like less awkwardness of kind of like, you don't want to be rude. Y'all want to go to the same restaurant, but it's sort of like sometimes somebody doesn't want to go, but it's like when you're kind of all connected, you understand each other and you kind of know what you want to do. And it just makes it easier and more fun.
Yeah.
Plus, like we've done more shows with them than anybody else. So we've kind of developed this family relationship with them. And
I am a bit jealous of it. It reminded me of like the old days, like the old days. They sound like old, but like
back in the old days,
well, like
before
Locust and
cars.
Jenny Piccolo would always tour together. We were like the like the sister bands. Like that was
Right.
so cool. And when I kept seeing you two together on tour, and I was like, that is really, really awesome.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Because after just a couple nights, really, you get your rhythm down work-wise. You get to the thing, you set up, and then afterwards, it's like a machine of tearing down and getting stuff in the van and kind of keeping an eye out, because some of these places we had no idea where we were, and just had to be. So, we just, as a unit, as a touring unit, even though we're separate entities, we've always worked really well together.
Yeah.
And we had this amazing tour manager who kind of took care of everything.
That's also a plus.
Yeah. He drove, in situations that, through situations, tiny situations that we just couldn't ever
That's
consider
his
doing.
job.
You mean
Right.
physically?
Well,
you mean
it's just-
physically, like the
Yeah.
National Lampoon's European Vacation style?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Like, there were at least 2 hotels in Europe where the parking lot was through like this archway.
Uh-huh.
And we were in this big van.
Yeah.
And so, he, within literally an inch or two, just getting through an archway and, I don't know, it was amazing. It was more than I could have done.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, so I guess like the thing that I was going to start with was like how we met back in the day through, I mean, I guess the Locust touring out there, but we'd like, and I guess like all of the stuff that you did leading up to this project. And then also, to me, my perception of Nebraska is probably not accurate, but to me it always seemed, it just seems bizarre. Like, it seems like such a weird place because there's so much cool shit that happens in that state that I feel like it's sort of like Austin. You're like, how does Austin happen in Texas? So I kind of feel like in Nebraska, where I was like, there's Omaha and Lincoln. I'm like, how come there's like this, like a surplus of cool shit, cool
Right.
people doing cool stuff. Like, I don't know, like where did all that come from for you, I guess?
That's a lot of questions, but I just feel like I grew up in Nebraska my whole life. And so growing up there and being an outsider and an outcast, you kind of like seek everything out. And I was one of those kids growing up that I knew there was more out there than small town Nebraska life. I knew there was more out there than just what I knew even. So I was the kid that wrote everybody. If you're into skateboarding, I wrote you. If you were into music, I wrote your band. If you were in Book Your Own Fucking Life and you had like the funniest description of your band or like the most brutal band ever, I wrote your band no matter what. And
Which
so,
you just dated yourself, because Book Your Own Fucking Life was like a survival manual if you were in a band. In
mid
early
90s.
even, I think.
Well,
yeah.
I'm actually like 140 years old, so just letting you all know that.
Lucky.
But I just feel like in Nebraska, you have to really try to be creative and you have to try to make shit happen because there's nothing going on there. And if you are an outsider, an outcast, you kind of all cling together and try to make things interesting because everybody's kind of, not to say everybody, but the culture is against you as a weirdo because where we live in Lincoln, it's so college and so football and so sports that you have to, it creates counterculture in itself, and it makes you want to be different and kind of freak those people out too, because it's really easy there. That's what I always liked about touring bands coming to Nebraska. Like, damn, people still flip on punks here, you know? And you're like, fuck yeah, you can definitely tell you're from out of town. And so it's just like, I feel like that was my connection on, say, meeting you, because when the Locust came through in '95 to Lincoln, this is with Jenny Piccolo and Resin at Shane Kreidel's house. Which my brother lives a block away from there. And actually we live a block away from there. And that Locust Jenny Piccolo 5-inch picture disc, my brother got that at that show. And it like changed my life, because it was like the heaviest record. I listened to death metal and I listened to like heavy music, but this was like a whole different take on what I thought heavy music was. It was like really weird. It was so heavy and so noisy, and so just like the energy that I needed as a teenager to open my mind and my eyes to like underground music even more. And so I think all I did was just write 31G, or whatever, address was in the record. And I just started writing you, and you wrote back. And that was just my beginning to like all the connections I made in the 90s. Was like, people just actually wrote back, and it was about that. And people were pen pals, and it wasn't this informal email thing. People actually took time and wrote cool letters. Like, I actually still have all of your letters from the 90s. Like, I have a signed Orland Mills photo of you and Alyssa, and I had that hanging in my room forever, to be honest, framed and everything, just because it was like, that was like so new and cool and underground and different, and that was like all I strive for growing up. And I feel like that's what a lot of kids in Nebraska feel like too, is if you want to be different, you have to really make it happen. And that's all I've ever done throughout my time there. So,
but it was like happening though. Like, that was a place where when we would go there, it would always be awesome. Like,
that's what's weird about Lincoln, especially, is there's crazy punk history there since the late 70s. And there's books and zines about this. And there's a ton of photo documentation. So I feel like that when I saw this book called Capital Punishment, when I was like 14 years old, I had to seek all this music out, because it was so punk looking. Like, everything just looked, like quintessential punk, you know? And I got to know a lot of those people too. And at the same time, and this was the mid 90s, as much as there was that history of punk happening, there was bands like Armatron and As Good as Dead happening, which was like so bizarre in itself, and so heavy, and so like, that mind blowing to me as a kid to know that, whoa, this is happening in Nebraska, and it's kind of more eccentric and more out there than what's happening in major cities out there. And people were putting out records, and zines were really big. And I felt like everyone was just creating these networks to really make things happen. So I felt like things were happening especially in the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, that was I think my first interaction was meeting everybody in As Good as Dead with Swing Kids, which was like a few years before Locust made it out there. And that was so cool, because I mean, obviously Matt Lux and everybody in that band was just so wonderful, and they were so loving, and it was really nice to meet someone. But for us, it was like that band put, Nebraska on the map for us. You know, like, oh, that's a place we'll always play. Like, I don't think I've ever had a bad show there. It's always been really fun and awesome, and got progressively better, every time.
Yeah. I felt like that's just how Nebraska was at that time, especially. It was just like, kids were just dying for anything crazy and punk and fun. And this was like a time where we didn't do shows at bars. It was like weird rental halls. And we always try to find the weirdest places, or any cheap place we could have a punk show at.
What was the one place that we'd always play that was like on a corner, and it was like next to a come and go, I don't know. It was like almost like a school hall or something. I don't know what it's called. We always would play there.
I remember you guys being at Havelock Social Hall, which was like a rental hall, but then there was the Culture Center, which was part of the university that we used to throw shows at. I remember doing a show for the Locust in like, I think I was 18, and it was one of those like, I'm going to do the show. And there were kids from all over the Midwest that came to the show. And I remember like hundreds of kids being there and just being like, what did I do? Oh my God, there's too many people here, but everyone was super cool, and it all worked out in the end. But I was really nervous about
I remember that show. It was awesome. It was a great show. But so, I mean, and then, I don't know, like, it seemed like when Faint got like their shit together and Saddle Creek and stuff, then it kind of blew up there for a minute, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I mean, like once Saddle Creek Records happened, I feel like Omaha all of a sudden was just like this huge explosion of music. But at the time, it just wasn't for me, and I felt like at that time Omaha wasn't cool. Like I played in grindcore bands, and it was like they were a hardcore city, and Lincoln was like grindcore, like weirdo city, and so they kind of clashed a lot. I mean, years later, I learned how to utilize both cities for my, to why only play or be in one city when you could do both. It's only an hour away. Yeah. But like at the time, it was sort of like Omaha sucks because it's only hardcore kids. This was 90s hardcore where it was like had a different definition, it was like tough guy almost. And Screamo came out of that and stuff like that. And it just like wasn't my thing at that time. But Omaha had cool things happening like the Cog Factory, which was an all ages venue. And that was like so important for Nebraska to happen because it was like a definite legit DIY venue that was hosting anything. Yeah. So it was like, in a shitty neighborhood, of course, and you get your stuff stolen out of your car, but it was a place for kids to go because it was all ages, and it like brought out new ideas and new bands and just made kids be punk too. Yeah. And I felt like there were good record stores in Nebraska. And I feel like if your city has a good punk record store, there's punk kids going there, and it makes kids be that way too. And that was just like a good thing growing up around there. I felt like was definitely the record stores.
So to me, there was this one show that the Locust played where we were on tour, and I don't know what happened, but we got paired up with the Rapture.
That was the show I booked. I was just talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, you booked that one?
No, that was a different show.
Okay.
It was the one I was talking about was with the Convocation of.
Oh,
I don't remember who. Shock.
Yes. Well, the one with the Rapture was kind of weird too because it was like I felt like both bands were a little bit bigger, and it was really interesting to go to or to play the show and to realize like, okay, there's a lot of people here and they're here for both bands, and that says a lot about the community because I think San Diego is very similar to that. So I felt like I understood it a lot because if you go to certain cities where it's like, oh no, they're only here for one thing. We're not going to mix these two oddball things together, but to all of us it was like, oh yeah, we're all friends and this is cool and let's just have a good time, and it made sense. So that was like what really stuck out. So to me, I sort of have this like vision of what it is like from where you're from, and maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like it seems like what you guys are doing now kind of embodies that because the times that I've seen you perform, I kind of trip out, or just seeing like what you're doing, like even just like before we started recording, like how you were saying how you're in Florida and stuff like that. I'm like, ugh, Florida, But I wonder, like, your influences are, I don't know. I think they're very unique, and maybe that translates into the overall vibe or style that you guys have as a unit. And I think that's kind of cool. And maybe that comes from where, your upbringing, I guess.
I've even like
from your upbringing comes from my upbringing, because my upbringing is totally different.
Where did you come? You were
San Francisco.
80s. Yeah.
I was a teenager in the 80s in San Francisco.
You've seen all of the best shit.
I've seen all the best shit. I've seen all the worst shit.
Of course.
I've managed through it.
Yeah.
In 90s San Francisco was totally different than Lincoln, San Francisco. But in terms of my influence on this project, I think a lot of it comes from my youth.
Well, I mean, so what was like? I mean, what were you doing in your formative years, like growing up? And what was the stuff that was moving you?
It was gay. Everything was gay, and so was I, and it was magic. And, there was a power, being young and honestly being heavy, not looking like anybody else, but kind of getting a sense real early on that I'm not chopped liver, in this world. Yeah. So I had my tune, and people would kind of gravitate towards that, and that was just interesting, and that was entertaining, and that was all the entertaining that I kind of need, just seeing what I can do amongst my people. Yeah. But I was really young then, I was way younger than any of the men that I was hanging out with. Yeah. The 80s, 'cause I graduated high school in 1986. So, but I was I was in the world, way before that.
Yeah.
And just kind of watching the world too, seeing people get sick and seeing people go away, after 2 weeks, that, you lusted after, and then 2 weeks later they were gone. And you get a little determined, to run quicker than what's chasing you. Because I felt just that whole thing was chasing me. But
so like urgency, sort of, in
urgency,
life,
and kind of get your kicks in, before something happens.
Yeah.
And get through high school,
Yeah.
and then wonder what you're gonna do with the rest of your life.
So you weren't like, you wouldn't consider yourself like a punk or something growing up, would
no,
you?
I was
A goth.
Which is so, it's like right next door.
I was super goth, but I was also super preppy.
Yeah.
But
okay, so if I'm talking out of line here, just let me know. But I feel like maybe in that era of growing up in the gay community, it seemed like it had so many elements of like what punk ethics are, at least to me, because you had to be like fucking badass.
Oh yeah, because some things were still illegal.
Yeah.
And being gay in San Francisco was punk.
Yeah.
Until we got power.
Yeah.
But the resistance we had to show, or the strength that we had to somehow pull out of something, because there was this issue now that we had to address that was taking us out of the clubs. So it's like, okay, we have to rethink, and hone down, and that was the start of the ending of the punkness of being gay. But then we also got our power.
Yeah.
But then that also gave us a lot more exposure, which was good. But then some of some it was nice and tawdry and underground, just kind of doing your thing. Even though in San Francisco it was everyone's thing. Yeah. But it just didn't go any further than that until we had to make a stand about something.
Yeah.
But like I just said, that kind of shone so much light on the entire world that a lot of people felt they had to not be as underground or as kinky, so they could look, right, or proper, or like everyone else.
Yeah, sure, I see what you're saying.
To get the rights, to get the money, to get the power.
Yeah, to infiltrate.
Right. Right. And the infiltration is, still kind of my operating frame of mind. Just to seep in my stuff, my art, his stuff, our stuff. Yeah. Just to slowly, keeping it alive.
Sure. Wow.
Because all that's kind of changed. Even since I was a kid, in terms of what it is to be gay or queer or whatever anyone wants to call themselves. I think the infiltration though is a big part, because we're not mainstream at all. Nothing.
But you are exposed to people that are part of that mainstream,
right?
And I'm like, what the fuck are they thinking? I'm sure, still, like, even now, it's like, I feel like the world should have its shit together, and it clearly, obviously, does not have its shit together. No. But do you feel like now, as what you guys are doing, do you find that, I don't want to say like, I don't know, conflict maybe, or do you find that there is still a struggle to some extent?
No, because because I was young and naive, and everything, not everything, but my sexuality and everything came very easy to me, and that was never a challenge. So that part of it, there was never a conflict.
Well, I don't mean like personal conflict. I mean like, because you were talking about like infiltrating, or like how like the gay community would end up becoming like, I don't want to say like normalized, but seeping into like the
right,
the general population that people see.
Right.
So I like, even now, like watching you guys musically, it's still like, I mean, obviously, like, bring it. I mean, I fucking saw G.G. Allen play when I was 13. Like, so I'm down for whatever.
Right.
Nothing shocking to me. But when I watch you guys perform, I'm like, there's got to be people here that are freaking out.
Oh yeah.
And I love that.
Right.
You know.
I mean, the whole like just gay culture is like what has brought us to where we are in general. Like, I feel like gay culture can make you an outsider if you're not part of gay culture. As I was growing up, I was a punk and metalhead. I didn't understand gay culture in that kind of group of people. So when I was a teenager, I didn't really know how to meet people like me, or were there people like me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was, which is fucking
Right.
crazy, but no one ever really talked about it.
Right. And there wasn't really internet yet either. So it was kind of like, how do I meet people like me? And I feel like both of us being artists, art in general is just our huge influence to kind of project as like being different or interesting in ourselves. But I feel like me growing up, especially, I had a different upbringing in gay culture where I grew up in small town Nebraska, where it was very looked down upon. It wasn't open-minded and it wasn't cool. And so for me, honestly, having Lauren in the band with us or with me has helped me come out even more and helped me project all of this on as like a musical project as well, and kind of push the boundaries and push the elements of what gay culture is, or just kind of, there's so much more to it than just say Britney Spears or Madonna, you know? And well, there is, but it's just one of those things where like, yes, that's a huge influence to us as well. But at the same time,
Well, it's stylized, and I'm not downplaying it. It's an awesome style. It's code. It's fucking. It's the picture that people see. Like, it's important.
Right.
I mean, that's why that's even why punk was important. Like, when you saw someone wearing a fucking Crash shirt, you knew that they were on the level.
Right.
So, yeah.
I just feel like, I mean, I forgot what the original question kind of was, honestly, but it was just like, I feel like just being gay in general is just what makes us kind of do this and push the boundaries for ourselves even. So yeah, when we do play certain cities, people are shocked at times. To us, it's not shocking. It's just like us, we do this every day.
I know. Yeah.
But like, even we played in cities like Berlin and people come up to you like, I've never seen anything like that before.
Where the fuck have
and
you
you're
been
like,
living?
This
You
is
know?
Berlin. You know,
I know.
Everything about us is this city. And I love that kind of reaction. And I love watching, I love watching kids kind of be, wide mouth open and just kind of like, not even sure what to think. Cause we've played, of course, for people like us or like-minded people, open-minded people. We've also played shows for that weren't very open-minded, and there people stand 30 feet away from, 20 feet away from you, and they're just staring at you. You can see them laughing at you, and you can see them making fun of you. But by the end of the set, they're taking pictures with you, and they're into it, and they want to make sure that they're documenting it too. And
but maybe they're not laughing at you.
I think they're nervously laughing at the situation.
Okay, because I know when I've seen you perform, I'm sure I've laughed and smiled like a motherfucker because I love it and it's awesome. And I'm like, there's so much like awesomeness happening right now. So maybe they're so square.
But you can tell when there's a jock.
You can tell when you're being laughed at sometimes.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. It's
okay. I hear it. Yeah,
we're
because,
having.
But there's always
I feel like
a
it's all about
turnaround.
being fun
There's
and having
always
fun.
the turnaround.
But
and
the jock
funny.
that's laughing at you is probably just in the closet.
Exactly.
It's
Oh,
like
right.
jokes on
Yeah.
them.
That's why I call it like a nervous laughter in a weird way, because it might be like shocking or it might be uncomfortable for you, but it's still fun and it's not necessarily dangerous. It's just kind of like, if you can't hang with it, go.
Right.
I mean, also too, like it's 2022. Like people should have seen everything at this point. Like, right? You would assume.
I hope not, in a weird way.
I don't know. I feel
otherwise I feel done or
people
over.
act like they do, but they're still shocked and they're still put off, and not just by us,
but not that like I've seen everything. I'm not saying it like that, but like, and when I see your performance, it's like, I mean, I love it. And it's not that I want to be shocked, like this is new and brand new and innovative and 100% the most original thing, but I'm like, this is fucking sincere and this is heartfelt and it's fun and it like has all the things that we all need.
Right.
Because part of me wants to say that like any kind of artistic output has been done before. Like you can
of course.
it's all kind of maybe been done, but then at the same time, it's like when I watch your performance, I think of like I don't know, like Nights of Reb, and then I think of like Men's Recovery Project, and I think of like all these weird fucking things that like normally wouldn't be put into one package, and I see that, and I think that's what I guess I was trying to get at with my question.
Well, I think that comes from Ross in particular, not being so tied down to one genre of anything. As much as he knows about all the genres, he's really not. I mean, I've seen people, our friends that, only this, only
like
this,
the purist,
and you don't do anything else, and that's cool. But when you have some creativity, when you have some determination, you don't want to do the same thing all the time.
No. So what do you think your I hate these words, but like, what do you think your genre is, or your niche, or where, like, where do you fit in? Where do you?
Well, that's and actually talking to people at airports and on the airplane, or today at the weed store. And it's taken me a while, and I don't even know if it's a concrete etched in stone thing. But when someone asks us what kind of music we play, my first thing now is just to say hard disco.
Oh, okay.
Hard leather disco.
Yeah. Whoa. Cool.
That's kind of whether that's just to get someone off my back.
Yeah.
Because I'm never trying to explain
it
myself.
It depends what kind of person you're
Sure.
talking to as well. Because sometimes it can be like the most, like it's someone's mom. Like the woman sitting next to me on the plane was like, "What are you doing in San Diego?" And you're like, "I'm in a band playing a show." "What kind of music do you play?" And you're like,
Hard leather disco
hard
is
leather
a fucking
disco.
rad genre title. So if you
And
I think that's what we'll go with.
Right. Hard leather disco.
Did you just pull that out of your ass right now?
No, I'm super witty. No, I've because people ask.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
I'm not, I'm not as musically oriented and knowledgeable as much as he is with, his kind of music and genres. I mean, I know my stuff, but it's totally different stuff.
We always kind of joke, like, would we, like, if I wasn't gay, would I be interesting? And it's sort of like, I don't know. But I think being a gay person, it's really made me just seek so many different things, and just have such a different mindset and open-mindedness of music and art in general, that to me, I was like, I grew up around heavy metal and punk, and that was what my brothers listened to when I was growing up. So I was already into kind of weird music, or not necessarily weird, but that's what I thought everyone listened to Motley Crue when I was 10 years old. And then eventually I just really got into like other various forms of heavy music, whether it was, like grindcore, or just even like doom metal or sludge, or just noise in general was like a whole new experience for me. And I feel like I was the kid that grew up, because I was gay, I loved punk, but I also loved disco and techno and dance music. But like, how do you combine all those together? Like, can you fit into those roles in different scenes? And I've kind of learned that I was an outsider in all the scenes I was already involved with in a way, because I played in a grindcore band called Wastoid for almost 15 years. And like I was saying, I played drums, and all we did was play grindcore, and that was my life. All I listened to was grindcore. And then after
but you were not like a typical grindcore band. Like, you were still on the fringes of weirdo shit.
Right. And I think that was like, I've always tried to push the boundaries of whatever I wanted to do, because like grindcore was cool, but it's like, how do we make it different and interesting? And honestly, a lot of that's like the influence of the Locust on me, especially because that was a different version of heavy music. And when I heard that, it was like, whoa, you can do this,
But you can do whatever you want.
Right.
You just have people say it sucks. And,
right.
Yeah.
But at the time when I was a teenager, it was like, whoa, you can do this. There's more to it than deicide. You know what I mean? But I was also into like art rock and noise and even pop music and disco and metal and punk. And so it's like, I feel like eventually all of that just became so much that that's what made me create this project over 20 years ago now, which was Blague originally was just like a joke idea, because I was booking so many shows and bands. It's like, I booked all these punk and grind bands, but then like I'd book like a weird art rock band or weirdo pop performance artist. And it's like, how I want to play these shows too. What kind of band do I do to play these shows too?
That could fit into all of them?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so like, we used to just sample other people's music and then just like tear it apart, so you couldn't even, it had no rhythm, or you couldn't dance to it, but it was like techno beats. But there was no rhythm to it. So we kind of jokingly called it anti-dance music, which wasn't against dance music. It was just hard to dance to. And so it was like a lot of just wailing and screaming to non-rhythms. And honestly, a lot of that was influenced by Arab on Radar and Eric Paul, because his vocal stylings was just so weird. And so like, that was the new thing for me, was like, that's what I want to do, is just be like kind of weird. And so like, it was hard to do that in a grindcore band, but at the same time, I feel like we pulled it off and made it work, just to kind of be different. We kind of took like stage looks differently, and like I just kind of got sick of looking at guys in jeans on stage, and I want to just be like different, you know, like, so I just started wearing weird shit in a grindcore band. But like, this project just started slowly doing things, and then all of a sudden it seemed like, well, it's kind of working. And then by like 2012, unfortunately, Jeff from Wastoid passed away, and then so that band was over, but we had done Blague together, and was like, okay, when he died, I was like, I'm doing this full time. I had already started kind of changing how it was becoming what it is now in a way. And so when Wastoid was over, that was like my main band. We were doing so much, and then that momentum just was still going, but it's like, how do I do it in this project?
You still have the energy for it.
So I kind of took all those weird elements of noise and art and grind and electronic music and put it all in one thing, and it's just kind of turned into this monster of Blague the way it is. But all of it's just really the influence of just being a gay person has really brought out just even myself in this project. Like, it's really even helped me open up as a gay person and just be gay, you know, because I had a hard time with that growing up. And this
even in our scene, it was so strange to me. Like when my friends, you know, it never really mattered, but we're like, are you gay? What? If you are, you should just fucking tell us, because it'd be way cooler, you know? And like, people didn't feel comfortable. I don't want to name any names, but like, we toured with people that were just not ever coming out of the closet. And you're like, dude, that's fucking bullshit. Like, you should feel so comfortable with us.
Right.
You know?
And that's what is important with this project now, is we have so many kids come up to us that want to talk to us about coming out, or they want to just like talk to gay people, or because kind of going back to one of your questions about small town world, sometimes playing these small towns are the better shows, because kids are dying for anything gay, anything weird, anything out of the ordinary. And so they come to your shows and they want to see it, and they're just blown away that this is in, say, Springfield, Missouri, you know what I mean? But you're like, I relate to that personally, because I grew up with that same world where I was dying for anything too. And so we do have a lot of interactions with kids, and even like of all ages, that are like struggling to come out, or just want to talk about it, or just want to talk to someone else that's gay too. And you know, like, to us, that's super important, and it's really like liberating in itself, and it's eye-awakening, and you can feel like, wow, we have it really easy, and some people don't, and you know, and you learn about yourself too. But it's just cool, like, being able to go on stage and feel like you're just kind of like making a statement too. And that's super important to me, to as an artist, to just be like, I'm not just getting up on stage to like, you know, play a guitar. I'm out here to like really show a message, and really like show an identity too, and like kind of like strip the morals of reality, and just kind of make yourself be this like, or like unit togetherness at a show too, because we can all get along, hopefully, you know, and you know, like feel like one, you know, like it's okay to be here, it's okay to dress like this, it's okay to be different too. And that's a lot of what I like to project in this band. So I feel like Lauren's influence in this project is to actually help me even be more open and be even more out as a gay person too, because like I said, growing up in my world was just way different. I feel like I've learned just so much about myself in the last 15 years doing this, especially.
But you know, it's crazy too, because Lauren, your stage presence says a lot. It's fucking like, it's
thank you.
You like,
thank you. I'm
well, okay. So again, like when you were talking about how like people in smaller towns are like, oh, I just want to talk to these gay people. But to me, I feel like if I was to see you and I was one of those people, or I think back to my youth when I would go and see bands and it was really influential. To me, I would just be like, it wouldn't be that like, oh, they're a gay band, or they're you know, they are part of the gay, you know, culture. I think to me it would be like, this is some fucking weird ass shit in a cool way,
in a
and let's do
confident
this.
way.
That's very
Right.
important.
I'm very confident in my sexuality.
But I think people need to see your performance and be inspired. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna go fucking do something, not the same thing, but like I'm gonna go do something.
Right. That's kind of what I was talking about before, is like we want to make this be like something that maybe might influence people to be themselves, especially. Like I try to promote that as much as I can. Like, if we can do it, you can do it, like it's really is a confidence thing. I never really thought about that.
That kind of is a punk thing, like, because it's like the whole thing, like, I guess we're going back to like the Ramones, like anybody can do it, and it wasn't that like, yeah, you could technically do it, but you had to be in your soul, to really do it,
right.
and which you can't.
Right.
Everyone can't do that.
Right.
The squares that are laughing at you, they can't fucking do it.
Right.
Yeah, screw them anyway. I like a lot of the influence we get is like from the Pet Shop Boys or Suicide.
Yeah, great.
And like those are both projects which has like a 2-person element where one person's maybe
I channel
the tame person, one
Pet Shop
person's kind of the
Boys.
wild person, but it's also kind of channeling those same like ways of doing shows where, like, when Suicide would play, people would riot at their shows.
Yeah,
Not
which
that I want
is
to
so
riot,
crazy though, but
because
like
they just couldn't understand it or something. And
but they
me,
would
it's like,
riot like in a positive way, right? Like, it would
I
be
don't
like,
think so.
Really?
No,
In a
'cause
negative way?
I saw a really good video of Suicide opening for the Cars, and people were just like, "Fuck you, fuck you,"
yeah.
booing them,
Yeah.
and it's like, and you could see Alan
Those are some of
Vega
the best
on
shit.
stage just being like, "Just bring it on," just egging it on,
Yeah.
and to me that was just like, that's so punk.
It's really hard to achieve that, but when you do achieve it, it's beautiful.
right.
It is beautiful. So yeah, but I see what you're saying, and that's interesting though. The 2-piece Pet Shop Boys and Suicide.
Because I'm not a entertainer like that. I don't know how to sing and dance, and I don't really.
But you have a fucking vibe.
But there's a presence, right?
It's
that's
so cool.
That's whatever. I mean, on stage I'm part Chris Lowe from Pet Shop Boys, part Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran, and part Laurie Partridge.
Okay, all right.
Because all they do
Yeah.
is kind of that.
Yeah.
But they look cool doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I'm like, well, what are they doing?
Yeah.
What are they projecting? And it's awesome, but it's almost like a protection thing, because I really didn't know what to do on stage. It used to be that I was kind of off stage with these weird light switches, doing stuff with my feet and
Whoa.
doing weird stuff. But then putting me on stage, though, just kind of galvanizes us as well.
Yeah.
And the unit and the project or the entity, which I like to see as being kind of a rock of whatever we're doing, but just being very confident and kind of unwavering, because there's stuff coming at us from all different kinds of people about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it.
I mean, people telling you that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Who?
Sometimes directly. I get that a lot with my art.
People like to tell you, they want to tell you what you need to do.
Right,
Or
right.
just
Your drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Right. I don't draw enough this, that.
Whoa. You
Then
draw what you draw, and you play what you
draw
play.
with this hand
Yeah.
draws. That's it's not up to me, it's up to the hand.
Yeah.
But it is interesting having to articulate a response other than fuck you.
Yeah.
But although that's my main thing, is that I don't I never feel I need to answer about my art at all.
Yeah.
But some people want that. So I kind of try to word it in such a way that I'm not changing.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, when people are so willingly giving you criticism, I guess, or whatever they're giving
Encouragement.
you. Encouragement. Yeah. I would say constructive criticism. But yeah, encouragement. Like, I wonder if, like, it's part that you're ahead of the curve, or, like, it's part that maybe people can't comprehend something that's unique. Like, oh, it needs to be like this other thing. Let me reference this other thing that you should be doing. That's kind of like,
I don't know. It's interesting. We were in Chicago a few weeks ago playing this IML after show, and someone who had criticized me online was there, and he saw us and he loved us, and he apologized and saying that he was having a bad day.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, so it's not about me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I kind of try to remember, is that it's not really about me. Yeah. But I don't know. I think people overvalue people's platforms and what they have. And, you know, I've got a big Instagram account, and maybe people think that I should be doing more for everybody else. And I can't.
I also feel like, too, once you get a little bit of popularity, people want to criticize you on anything they can think of, too. So it's just a matter of telling you what to do, because they think you're famous, and you're sort of like, well, I mean,
well, there's two things.
It's just numbers.
One, at least they're paying attention to you, because if they were indifferent, then you're probably not being successful. But the other thing that I feel is weird is, like, who feels that, like, their random opinion is valuable to give to you? Like, that's some arrogant shit. Like, you should be doing this. Like, fuck that.
It's the evolving, and it needs to evolve, but it's the current queer. It's not all youth, but it's a different wave of queer rights than my little gay rights in the 70s. It's way more encompassing.
Why do you just say my little gay rights?
Oh, I'm being facetious.
Okay. Okay.
I totally know it's not little.
Yeah.
You know, I know exactly where I come from. I know exactly what I went through. Yeah. And I see young people doing it the same, but they almost seem a little bit more angry, and maybe want to lash out at just anybody, even in their own camp.
Yeah. Which is kind of fucked up.
Which is super fucked up.
Well, and plus social media gives everyone a voice now to say whatever they want, and that's really become like
that
can be kind of a problem in lots of ways, and it just makes it so it's just kind of annoying, you know, like either enjoy it or don't.
Yeah. And when you're pointing your finger at someone, you're pointing 3 fingers back at yourself.
Right.
Whoa.
So,
totally. Right.
You know, and so that's like a big thing to realize. It is kind of interesting, like, you know, when people will lash out at you for, like, kind of not doing the thing perfectly, but then there's, like, way more fucked up things that we should all go fight against.
Absolutely.
So I feel like maybe the modern, I don't want to say generation, but the modern movements, progressive movements, seem like they're a little bit too, I don't know, like, not precious, but, you know, they're just like, it's like, just let someone say the wrong thing, and let someone kind of be fucked up on accident. Like, we'll get through this. There's bigger fucking problems to deal with, you know, and that is an interesting. Well, it's also interesting that this came from, like, the style of your music. We went to like super political, which is pretty rad in itself.
Because that's our politics.
Sure.
And that's the amazing part. I feel we may get a little criticism, or I get a little criticism, for not being more political. But there's nothing more political that we can do than what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is when you're overly political, it is a turnoff. You know, people are just like, and you
absolutely.
And also there's like no room for interpretation. And I think that it should be like you put out your art and let people interpret it and get what they can from it.
Right. Well, and they do, and that's where they opine.
Plus, I think, like, our goal is just to, like, have fun and, like, be fun and be interesting, and we're not trying to pigeonhole anybody but ourselves in a weird way. But it's just kind of like.
But do you think you're pigeonholing yourselves?
No, not anymore, not at all. Like, I used to think that, like, say, playing grindcore bands, where it was like, I feel like I'm only doing grindcore show after grindcore show. Well, this project has really opened up all sorts of genres and all sorts of people, and I'm way more into that.
So you really think, like, the Wasteoid was just a typical grindcore band?
No, but, like, I'm saying, like, when you would go on tour, you would play the grindcore show and play the same kind of grindcore show the next night.
That's the promoter's fault, or like the other band's faults, or whatever, right? You know.
Yeah, but that was also what we were kind of doing too. You know, that's what we were booking at that time. Yeah. And really, like, what's really opened up about this is, like, we can play like a hip hop show one night, a noise show the next night, a black metal show the next night, and a punk show, and then an electronic show.
And it all makes sense.
And it all makes sense because like I feel like those are all of the influences that we've brought into all of this too. But also just like you're saying, like us being on stage, you know, like like my ass is hanging out in a jockstrap. That's like a political statement that people don't understand. And like that's really what I'm pushing too. Is like, you know, like I can do this now. You maybe couldn't do this 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and you might get your ass beat for it. You might still now, unfortunately. But like, it's just one of those things where that's important to us, is just like expressing ourselves in a lot of ways.
And that is a fucking huge political statement. Your ass hanging out is so political, which is, I'm not trying to make a joke, but it sounds funny to say that, but that is a fucking serious thing that's happening. You know, like I feel like even in 2022 or whenever I saw you last, I don't know, it was like before the pandemic, so it was a few years ago, but that still is
like a month ago.
I know it feels like it, but or even like when I saw you after your set, I missed your set in Austin. We should give a shout out to the Oblivion Fest because that was pretty fucking
Oblivion
rad.
Access Fest was amazing.
Yeah, like they paired up all the shit, like they paired up the stuff like they should. You know, I was like, oh, all these bands are sick, and it wasn't like a grindcore show or a you know, hip hop show. It was like everything that was just mixed and cool. But I mean, I think even like going back to your ass hanging out. Oh, it was just, I think that's like I think it says a lot. I think it is a very, very important political message without being political. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just also what I like doing. So I feel like I have to do this.
Yeah. I mean, we should like to do it. I mean, if you think about it, like off stage, I mean, I just had this conversation with one of my other bandmates, but like, to me, I feel like this world's constantly fucked, and it's constantly like just grinding people down. And like, I get that there's beauty, and there is, but at the same time, at any specific moment, there is oppression, there's suffering, there's these things that we all have to work towards. And we can have fun, and we can go see, you know, you guys perform and have it be so much fun and smile and laugh and have a good time. But there's a level of righteousness to it, and there's a level of intensity and emotion and all these things that I think that are really, really important. And you guys seem to embody all that, and I think it's fucking rad.
I think that was a big learning experience for us touring Europe in this March. This in 2022 was right after the pandemic. Was how do we tour? You know, like we have to go back into this sometime, but also like the Ukrainian war just was started happening. It was like really, you know, serious news, and we were kind of like, is this even a right thing to do, is go on tour in Europe? And, you know, like we're some privileged Americans on tour in Europe, just doing our thing, you know, is this right? Should we do this? But then like the more we talked about, is this insensitive? And then the more we talked about people, we asked questions, we had meetings with like our tour package, and it was like, yeah, we have to do this because, you know, like people are living their lives still, but at the same time, like people need an outlet of something fun and exciting too. And like, you can't live in despair constantly, even though people do. But I felt like going to Europe and doing these shows and talking to people, it was like, this is my first show in 3 years I've been to. And like, I needed this more than ever. And it's like, I feel like the turmoil of politics right now, and just like everything's fucked up in general. Like, people need an outlet of just having fun or exciting or just different too.
That 30 or 40 minutes maybe gave them the power that they needed to fucking get on with shit, like, and do something else that's
just a
massive.
little break.
Right.
But it doesn't even have to be a break, I don't think. It just needs to be like a parallel timeline, right? Like you can have fun and still be working, progressing towards something collectively and spiritually or whatever, and then come back and fucking hit it harder.
Right, totally.
It was just like eye-awakening too, just to be like, whoa, we're, you know, like, I hate to say it, we're entertainers, and it felt good to kind of provide an entertainment for people that maybe are having, you know, hard times, especially in Europe, or like just being in Poland in general was scary enough to be like that close to the Ukraine and that close to war in general. I've never experienced anything like that. So, you know, we all thought a lot. There was a ton of emotions going on in our whole tour package. And so it just felt like when people gave us positive feedback or like people would talk to us at shows, it just felt good to do that because, it was an outlet and it was their outlet for, 30 minutes or whatever.
And it's just a band,
right?
Because I mean, even like not to cut you off, but even when I was just on tour with Def Club when we would play, and it was like we were in Texas, and it was like it was right before Roe versus Wade was flipped, and not me saying something on a microphone to a couple hundred people isn't life changing. It's not going to fucking change politics, but it's saying something like that's important to people and that resonates with people, and then you could feel this sort of I don't know, like intensity. I don't want to be there and be like, this is fucked and everything sucks. I want to just be like, yo, this shit is this is what we stand for.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're all fighting for. Let's do this. And then people would have an outlet and kind of be able to release something. And then I feel maybe it would, give them power or energy or rejuvenation or something. We need that because there's too much bullshit.
Right. I feel like even like we need that in general too. We need to feed off people's energy and, just awareness and just kind of like feeling good about this moment right now.
Yeah.
And
instead you just have dicks on like just total fucking jerks on Instagram telling you to do something differently, and
sometimes. I mean it's
I know it's usually like 4.
Not that bad.
It's like
it's like someone leaves a weird YouTube comment and your day's ruined.
Yeah, but like but for every YouTube comment there's like a million, whatever, hundreds or thousands of other positive ones.
There's actually more positivity than there is negativity for us, especially.
Right.
We're just lucky, but we also try to promote as much positivity as we can too, to like this is fun and we want you to be yourselves, and
that's so cool,
and it is all about that.
But all the negativity that I see surrounding you, which it isn't much at all, but when I do see it, or even like when I saw you play, I could see people being uncomfortable. I was like, fuck yeah, man, like good, fuck yeah, like not fuck them, but like I was glad, like make them uncomfortable or make someone feel that they have to say something on the YouTube comments, like you got them, you won, like jokes on them, or like haha to them, because they're the ones that like wasted their time.
Right. But it's also like when we see people having fun, that's what makes it fun for us too. But I do like to see people be shocked a little, and I do like to see people kind of with their mouths open, and they might not understand it at the beginning, but usually by the end they're like, that was fucking awesome. And that's what's cool, is I like to like watch people go from confused to having a good time. And that's really fun and cool to me and exciting to see it. It means like, oh, what I just did worked, Yeah.
It's nice to know when something is actually working though.
Right.
Okay, well, I think we should. I think everybody has to go, so maybe we should cut it. But I think whatever you guys are doing, you're doing something really special and important. So, to all the negative comments, they can fucking suck it, because you guys are killing it, and it is rad. It is really rad.
Yeah,
super fun.
Well, I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you. This is great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, there you have it, episode 25 of Colton Culture. Again, we'd like to thank Plack Blague for coming out and being on our podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors. We'd like to thank the people listening. We'd highly suggest you check out our previous podcast if you've missed any of them, especially after the little bit we got into before we started the podcast about all of our other guests and how they all are on a very unique level. Shout out to everybody that's been on Colton Culture. We love you. Feel free to stream this stuff wherever you stream your crummy podcast. Not that your podcasts are crummy, but the ones that the streaming services are not all that great sometimes. Anyhow, stream the shit out of our podcast. Thanks.
Colton Culture is proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Fender, and Heartwork Coffee.
Planet B.